Growing up as a kid in the mid-2000s, I was exposed to the anime series Guyver, Bios Booster Armor on VHS. It was gory, action-packed, and had a kick-ass opening. Probably my first ever exposure to Japanese media. Well, aside from Ju-on. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you that I started an I'm just kidding. My flaps are too beautiful to be seen. I started a Patreon page. We're all aware of YouTube's copyright stuff, and given that I'm a channel that uses footage from films, the support will not always be there from YouTube. So in order to get support from viewers who want to be involved, and see the process of how I get videos made, I created a Patreon just for that. So if you'd like to support me in my content creation, the link will be in the description. Enjoy the video.
Life, an infinite energy beyond scientific understanding. Now, this energy has been transformed into a new weapon.
The story centered around a high school student named Sho Fukumachi, who discovers an alien device called a Guyver unit that latches onto him and gives him the power of the Guyver. He's got super strength, high frequency forearm blades able to cut through anything, friggin' laser beams that shoots out from his forehead, and a pair of alien boob implants called the Mega Smasher that destroys everything in sight with a release of energy. The Guyver, aka Sho Fukumachi, fights the Kronos Corporation's creatures called the Zonoids. Humans that can transform into monsters who are after the Guyver unit, since it was originally supposed to be delivered to the head of Kronos Japan for his plan of world domination. Simple story really, like Kamen Rider with gore. I'll review them one of these days, and as with every anime, there's a manga. The manga was published in 1985 by Yoshiki Takaya, and to my surprise is still going, but at a snail's pace apparently. The manga stopped being translated after volume 30, so I have no idea where the story is headed now. Last I heard, there's a new villain on Earth, and the Guyver is now kaiju height. Given its popularity within the Western market, there would be a small rise of live-action anime movie adaptations such as Fist of the North Star, Crying Freeman, and other ones which is probably not Western, but from other Eastern countries such as Riki-Oh, and even an early live-action adaptation of Dragon Ball from Korea. The Guyver would be one of the adaptations to be made during this time. The Guyver movie, written by John Purdy and directed by Screaming Mad George and Steve Wang, who's also the special effects guy on famous movies such as Predator, Big Trouble in Little China, and the Reanimator sequels. The Guyver movie is based off the manga/anime of the same name and follows the same storyline. However, it's very cheesy and is treated like another Power Rangers, especially with its opening credits, reminiscent of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie.
At the beginning of time, aliens came to the Earth to create the ultimate organic weapon.
Sho Fukumachi is now Sean Barker. Usually I would say, why you whitewash character? But for me here, I don't give a damn about Sho/Sean. I want to see the Guyver, damn it! The special effects are great, and the acting is meh, even though we got Mark Hamill, David Gale, and even Jeffrey Combs in the cast. Luke Skywalker vs. Reanimator? I'd pay to see that. Also, they had Michael Berryman credited as Lisker. So you're saying we could have gotten a Guyver 2, aka Villain Guyver. In the anime, Lisker is an associate of Kronos and becomes Guyver 2 through an accident and begins hunting down Guyver 1 after the Zonoids fail too many times. If the directors had embraced the darker tone of the anime, instead of trying to create another Power Ranger character, we probably could have gotten a Guyver 1 and Guyver 2 fight scene. I mean, just look at the anime. The Guyver from 1991 is not great, and I would not recommend watching it at all. But if you want to watch terrible movies for the enjoyment of it, then be my guest. The sequel to the Guyver is what we're really here to talk about. Guyver Dark Hero is one of the best anime adaptations in my opinion, in both respects and honors the source material, while experimenting a bit with the lore without completely breaking canon. Not only that, but the movie takes itself more seriously and is less goofy. Although I would disagree and say there are moments where it feels goofy, but that's just me. The movie now has an R rating, which means no more half-assed kung fu fighting like the first one, and we actually get to see the Guyver be the Guyver. I mean, for fuck's sakes, the guy's literally crushing Zonoid heads in the anime intro. I mean, just look at it. Steve Wang returns as the director and writer, and the budget is much smaller. The first one had a budget of $3 million, while this one only had $900,000. And given the budget they had for this one, I'd say it was a real improvement from the first. Can't imagine what a $3 million Guyver sequel would have been. I mean, with this budget, in this day and age, it probably would have just been a fan film. Which also it really does kind of feel like a fan film, if you think about it. Sean Barker is now played by David Hayter, aka Solid Snake, and he sure remembers the basics of CQC. You're pretty good. Okay, I'll stop. And he does a good job of playing a burdened/tortured hero, since in this movie, Sean is trying to rid himself of the Guyver unit and goes looking for answers at a dig site that has cave paintings resembling Guyvers that he sketched from his dreams. The Guyver suit looks significantly better than how it did in the first one. The color blue is more prominent and is much more buff than the previous. The suit from the first movie looks really skinny and has very compact armor pieces, making it look stiff. While the new suit has more broader shoulder pieces like in the anime, and has more fluid movement, which is complemented by the much better but still somewhat cheesy fight choreography. The choreo in the first movie was very bad and even at times goes on a little too long, but in Dark Hero it gives you just enough Guyver action to the point where you want more. Steve Wang and co. managed to ground the fantastical sci-fi story of Yoshiki Takaya into a cinematic motion picture. I'd say it was thanks to the simplicity of the story and complexity of the Guyver character that allowed for an adaptation like Guyver to flourish well. And hold your horses, Guyver fans. I know the manga and the 2007 anime dived much deeper into its story, but given that Western audience only had the first 2 arcs of the Guyver anime to adapt, I'd say they did well in adapting it and filling in whatever little gaps were left. I barely watch any anime nowadays, given its popularity. I mean, the last one I really watched religiously was Boku no Hero, so my opinion is probably irrelevant already, but I think some fans can agree on me with this. The live-action anime adaptations nowadays don't work as well as they used to because the premise of some anime/mangas can just be difficult to be adapted onto the screen. Not only are some premises hard to adapt, but some arcs just can't be compressed into a 2-hour movie, especially when there are way too many characters to introduce in movie form. Take the live-action Tokyo Ghoul for example. We have an origin story for Kaneki that leads up to the confrontation with the Ghoul investigators as the climax. But we're barely through the first season, and there are way too many characters that haven't been introduced. Hell, we don't even get a Jason. Although I think there would be a rights issue with the use of that character. You know, Jason and Friday the 13th, etc. You can try telling a quarter of a story arc in one movie, but you're going to leave an audience unsatisfied and who would rather go and rewatch the series a second time. All in all, I'd say the simpler the premise of an anime, the easier it'd be to adapt a story about it. And for me, I'd say Guyver Dark Hero is the definitive anime adaptation. Now can we please get a Guyver 3 with David Hayter?